I think the storyline has been very clear that the country program approach over the 7 years have brought in a new change. The issue of partnerships among the central government, the cities, and the communities, very critical, and also the horizontal cooperation and collaboration among the various stakeholders to plan together and look at a city as their city rather than each one of them planning in isolation. I think that's very clear. We saw that 70% on average, I think it's about 60% on average of the urban population are slum dwellers. And that's a very big constituency. So we're actually talking about a very big constituency of human resource, of population which is not tapped. So the power of the poor lies in their numbers. But if we can mobilize this poor, then I believe we can tap into a potential resource which is currently unutilized. How best can we develop the capacity of this resource and translate the resource into human capital for them to productively contribute to the transformative process? I'd like to open the floor for Q&A. And I want you to direct your questions to any of the panelists or to Julian, who was a keynote presenter, for any clarifications. Whatever they have said, I think you don't need to elaborate any further because we have limited time. So let's endeavor to use the remaining time productively. We shall start with can I see by show of hands those who have questions, who would like to make submissions? Yes, 1, 2. We only have the 2. Let's start with the Honorable Minister. Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon once again, and thank you to all of the presenters for some very active dialogue. My question is, one of the things we're here to learn is new programs want to learn from the old ones. So I would like to hear from people who have had the Cities Alliance Country Program about some of your challenges and or failures and the lessons learned from that. And then Julian, if you could chime in as well from the Cities Alliance perspective, what been done differently in some of those instances. Thank you.
Can you kindly let us just identify yourself, the name and...
My name is Liberia. Deputy Minister for Industry, Ministry of Commerce.
All right, yeah, we wanted that for purposes of record. Thank you. Yes, I think there's someone else. There's a hand down there, then you'll come to this row.
That way.
Yeah, if you have a microphone, please go ahead and you make your submission.
Yeah, it's Tony Lloyd-Jones again. I'm sorry. Just a little bit of history here. It's fantastically gratifying for me, in particular, to see what the Cities Alliance is doing today, because I was working in DFID in 1999 when Cities Alliance came into being, and all the things that we were wanting then seem to be coming into fruition. I see the next stage really as the scaling up that we're talking about. But I just wanted really to address another issue to Julian and probably to Matthias. Between now and 2050, the number of people in African cities will triple from about 500 million now to 1.5 million. Those people are mainly not already in communities. They will probably live on land that's being informally developed on the outskirts of the cities. So this is really a question about the role of strategic planning, and I think the way forward is there are communities involved. There are communities of villages. There are communities of land developers and landowners who are involved in this process. Is there, I didn't see in Julian's presentation planning, strategic planning of cities, and it doesn't cost a lot, and we definitely need some of it. So if he could respond to that query.
Okay.
You forgot to identify yourself.
Yes, I did. No, I was Tony Lloyd-Jones, University of
Tony.
Westminster.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, please identify yourself and then you can make yourself.
My name is Mehdi Lutwama. I work with Act Together. We are affiliates to Slum Dwellers International. I think the key, I don't know whether it's a question or a comment, but based on what we have heard, what has been transpiring in the different cities, the challenge now is that if Cities Alliance, in partnership with you as governments, started something that you think has contributed tremendously to the transformation of your settlements, how are you going to take this forward? If enumerations proved that you could identify priorities and build community voices, how are we ready as governments to invest resources into these communities to continue collecting this data, even integrating them in our census so that we can pay them and reduce unemployment? Those are the things we need to see how to take them forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that one goes to the national government and the cities as well. How are you going to sustain the initiatives? Any other? Well, it would appear that everything else was so clear that everybody understood and we don't need any further clarifications. And therefore I want to invite Julian to come and respond. Or maybe I start with the panelists before you come in. Let me start with the panelists. Each one of you, I think, one, will you respond to the challenges? What are the challenges that we experienced? And how can we avoid them? Each of you 1 minute?
Yeah, I
Not
think
more than
that,
that.
for me, based on the experience so far, the challenges is changing of mindset. It's very difficult. And to the extent that you realize that you train or great advocacy for a crop of technocrats and politicians, and either remove or transfer. And so there's that back and forth. But I think that challenge should not deter in terms of, and that's not also discourage as we continue with advocacy. And currently we see the expansion of the stakeholders in the urban sector. And I think the urban is being carried. We even went to the extent of coming of national policy that was participatory, that engage all stakeholders.
Okay, and then how are you going to sustain?
The sustainability of this should be represented in policy, which is shared. And this policy must permeate all sector plan, all medium-term plan, all city strategies. And Ghana's example can demonstrate what policy can trigger in terms of investment. We have Cities Alliance investing in the policy through LSC, World Bank coming with a bank grant, very historic, giving grant to the cities because of the policy. We have AFD coming in together with government to come with a project which we are calling Ghana Urban Management Pilot Project. And so the policy should be the basis for sustainability in the sense that this policy can be reviewed in participatory manner. As we moving forward, Ghana is thinking of reviewing its policy in line with the new urban agenda.
Thank you very much. So I think
that should be the basis for
the communities in Ghana, in Accra, you have heard that the policy is going to provide for financing of all these processes, the 3 processes we talked about, the mapping, the profiling, and the enumeration, all of them which must run parallel.
Yes, I agree with you.
No, that's, I think that is all. I didn't want you to come back to. Can I now invite Yombi?
Merci beaucoup. Je crois que l'un des gros défis, il y a mon prédécesseur qui l'a tantôt dit, c'est véritablement le changement de paradigme dans la question des bidonvilles. Au niveau des villes comme Ouagadougou, et je l'ai dit tantôt, traditionnellement, les populations s'installent dans ces zones et juridiquement, on considère que c'est des populations qui n'existent pas dans ces zones. Juridiquement, c'est des zones où il n'y a pas de titre d'occupation des sols. Aujourd'hui, c'est devenu une réalité. Quand vous prenez par exemple la ville de Ouaga, c'est environ 40% d'habitats spontanés, donc 40% de bidonvilles. Donc, comment trouver une solution qui intègre d'abord les questions de planification et qui prennent en compte les préoccupations des populations, comment les associer étroitement et les amener à changer progressivement de comportement et de paradigme en comprenant que c'est elles-mêmes qui doivent être à la base de tout le processus de planification dans leur zone. C'est le véritable défi auquel l'État est confronté, les collectivités sont confrontées, même que les partenaires techniques et financiers, leur intervention à ce niveau aussi doit être focalisée sur ce grand point. Et donc, je partage entièrement la proposition de Samuel en disant qu'il faut faire une cartographie des zones d'habitat spontané, de sorte à ce qu'à partir de ce mapping-là, qu'on puisse savoir quel type de solution durable on apporte à ces zones dans les différentes villes. Cette étape est vraiment indispensable et c'est ça qui va permettre d'avoir un exemple échantillon qu'on peut répliquer dans les autres villes. Et je pense que ça, c'est une bonne démarche aussi à expérimenter.
Thank you very much. Mayor Ginger, what are the challenges and how are you going to sustain the initiatives that are started?
Okay, thank you very much, Sam. Challenges and failures and lessons learned from that. One is that with the CA program introduction in Uganda came the MDFs, the Municipal Development Forum, which, as we've already said, has bridged the gap between the administrators and the community. Obviously, the MDFs, the people that are in the MDFs are working on a voluntary basis. They're not being paid any money. But as a result of the so many projects that they've implemented and the success of these projects, they're actually demanding for salaries now. Okay, this is something that we found a little bit challenging and we do not have an answer for it. Two is that with the CA program, there's been introduction of dialogue with the community, deliberation and discussion of so many issues, advocacy on radios. It has deepened democracy. We have raised awareness of the people. And of course, they've started demanding for answers and explanations on the so many different things that are taking place in the city. What we have realized is, however, the technocrats, the people, the administrators that run the municipalities have not been ready for this. They are often not able to answer the questions. They're not able to respond to the community concerns in time and effectively. That's another challenge that we found. The third thing is the success of the CA program implementation, especially in the slum areas, has resulted for extra demand in the other areas that were not tackled. For example, we've had a success with the projects in one of the slums in Jinja called Masese, but there are also other slums where absolutely nothing has been implemented, nothing has been done there. And so that has resulted into increased demand for similar interventions in those areas.
Scaling up. How do you
the second thing is about the land. Let me just say something about the land. You mentioned that the population of Africa is going to grow, and that how are we going to deal with that? For us, Uganda as a nation, the government has just enacted a policy that will allow for compulsory takeover of private land, though with compensation. And the reason they put that in place, they realize that the land is privately owned, but we will need this land for proper planning, proper physical planning. If we're going to do the infrastructure, if we're going to put up planned housing estates, we need to acquire this land. Now, the government doesn't have any land. The land belongs to the private people, but they've put in a place that allows the government to compulsorily acquire the land.
All right,
though with compensation.
That may come along with its own challenges, but I think point is noted. Mayor Clara.
I would like to take this time to offer City Alliance the city of Monrovia as a study case. In 1980, Monrovia had a population of 500,000. Today we have 1.5. And we know some of the causes for this migration to the city. We want to be able to know, they are helping us already now through the Slum Dwellers Association to do some basic mapping of the slums. I would like to offer Monrovia as a case study, because when I listened to all the case studies over the past few days, I realized that most of them were done in East Africa. I heard only two places, Burkina Faso and Ghana. Ghana is way ahead of the curve, but you have countries like Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, post-conflict countries that need studies to really make the changes you want to make in this country very much more applicable to our own setting, post-conflict setting, and especially now, okay? I really think I would like to offer Monrovia as a set. And okay. I heard Julian say this is not a short-term program. I know it's a long-term program because no quick fix is able to address all the social illnesses we have in these three countries that I just listed, Liberia, Guinea, Sierra Leone. That low area, if you were to do a real study there, you'll realize that we are unique. So please do some studies and see how you can help us with healthcare issues, how you can bring, I mean, you don't have to physically do these things, but how you can bring it to the forefront to help our government prepare plans and programs to deal with electricity, to deal with job creations for youth, and so forth and so on. I could go on for a long list. But not to take up all your time, I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Sarah, within half a minute. I think they have exhausted most of the challenges. You can just tell us one.
Yes, one major challenge that we face as communities, the government to continuously entrust the communities to continue with this program, because shall we only wait for outside money to entrust the community with the money and the process, or we shall still, even with our own resources as government, entrust the same money with the community? That is where we still have a challenge, because we think these lessons must still remain in our government structures and should be carried on, that communities must be part and parcel of development.
Thank you very much.
And maybe lastly, there was high expectation, not because in a negative way, but positively, and people knew that each settlement was supposed to get at least the need that they wanted was supposed to be handled. But in the long run, the funds were not able to carry out all the activities. So communities that did not receive remain saying we are left out. So it is a challenging issue that you have to tell them how it came to be like that. But implementation was okay.
All right, thank you very much, Sarah. And Farouk, lastly.
Yeah, from our experience, it's largely issues of political will. Will in the sense of the statements and policy directions plus the financing. These are things that are very key in terms of political will. And then the civil servants, the technocrats would also have to have a mindset and then change their mindset to learn the skills that is required to work with this new process of co-production. Thank you.
Can you give a round of applause to our panelists? And now I want to invite Julian to respond, I think, to some two issues which were raised. How to achieve scale, and then also how to move from here, sustainability.
Sorry, I think it's been a long session. I'll be very brief. There were two questions particularly. The one about city development strategies, or CDS. Sorry, I didn't have enough time, but a CDS, city development strategy, is at the core of every single program that we do. Every city will end up having brought stakeholders together to think about the future of their cities. And out of those city development strategies should come some form of pipeline of projects for future investment. But the city development strategy is absolutely fundamental to the work that we do in each city. Then the minister from Liberia asked the question, well, what lessons can you help us? Because we're just starting our country program, and I think we've had a lot of lessons here. But if I was to cherry pick one lesson, it took us a long time because we didn't have enough of a case study behind us to engage with government, for government to really understand what we were trying to do. For a long time, it was seen as a project within the ministry, and then if another person came around with another project, it would go into another silo and they would deal with that project separately. The key issue is what we're trying to do is build the institutional framework onto which anyone can hang their coat. It doesn't have to come through the Cities Alliance. It's not our project, it's the country program. So right from the beginning, it's got to have the ownership of a national ownership, and the idea is it's the frame of how we see urban development, how we manage, it's our approach to urban development, and it needs to be seen in that way. The second key lesson is that right up front, we have to recognize that it's not only about a ministry, a local government, and city and communities. You also have to bring all of government into the process. Because in many countries, cities are everywhere but nowhere. And we need to find how we can get the communication between the ministries as well to get a better coordination in the process. So I'll just leave it at those two, but I can sit down with you and give you a whole long list of particular lessons. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Julian. I think that clap is not good enough. Very seriously. Yeah, thank you very much, Julian. I think lastly, as I wrap up, I'm not going to repeat what I've already said. I think the only thing that I want to emphasize. Yes, Matthias? You have a microphone? Just one last one? Yeah. Ideally, the city development strategies are strategic plans. So it's just a whole process of strategic planning that delivers the city development strategies. So as I conclude, because we have spent all our time, and therefore I just want to wrap up by saying that there are key messages that have come out of this in terms of the citywide approach. The pilots were done, we saw that they could consume time and only within a confined area, but then it has to be citywide and involving everybody. And then of course the other issue of leveraging resources. One of the things which we expected much earlier on to happen was the issue of leveraging the community resources at the community level on a daily basis for each of the community members to save into a community development fund which could sustain all these community processes. That was not done. I think it should be done. The other thing is, of course, moving that to another level of organizing this into business enterprises which could create jobs. It is not individuals who create jobs, it is business firms which create jobs. And I think what the slum dwellers need are skills and jobs. And we need to bring that into the equation. And then thirdly, I think once the jobs are received, then they need to save for housing, and this is where we need housing cooperatives to come in as mechanisms and vehicles for delivering affordable housing. And I think that's a kind of transformative process that we should envisage in the next round. So with those few comments, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring this to a close. I request you to give us a round of applause, the panelists and the presenter. Thank you very much.